On today's episode of WatchJRGo, we are rebuilding the rarest carburetor you have ever seen for another YouTuber's car that you haven't seen yet either. What is going on, guys? I am WatchJRGo, and today, like I said, we are here with the rarest carburetor you have never seen before. So this big ol' hunk of cast metal on the table behind me is from a Packard, I think a 1926 Packard. So it's really, really rare because there aren't many of those left around at all. It's called the Packard Fuelalyzer. And it is, of course, a gigantic single barrel carburetor. And today, like I said, we are gonna tear this thing down. We're gonna take a bunch of pictures documenting it just to make sure we don't lose anything and then rebuild it. But every gasket is going to have to be built along the way. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like you can buy any of the gaskets for this thing anywhere. There's no easy to access rebuild kits or anything like that. It's just so old that the parts are all gonna have to be made. And it doesn't run right, so it's gotta be cleaned up as well. The fuel had absorbed a ton of water and was completely dead, unfortunately. So we had to drain all the fuel out of this car and pull the carburetor, and we're just going through everything to start over on the fuel system so it can run right. Now, let's jump right in and tear this thing down. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm working on here so you can get all the little details of it, but this is the cork float bowl gasket that was in pretty good shape, but appears to have, yeah, it shrunk, and that's nowhere near the size of the float bowl gasket. That is interesting. Maybe if I put it back in water, it'll go back to the right size, but the, not the float bowl, but the sediment bowl. The sediment bowl on this thing's that big around, and this was a perfect gasket for it, and somehow it has turned into this tiny little thing after all the gasoline left it. But it's cork, clearly, and we are gonna have to replace that, which is tricky now that it's the wrong size. And we did bust some of the screws loose on this already, so we're gonna keep track of what goes where and just go from there. So it says Packard carburetor, patented 12/12/1905 and 5/5 of 1914 and 4/3 of 1917 and 12/7 of 1915. So a lot of really old patents on it, and it's funny, it still says patent pending right on the top lid here. So this is the float bowl, and all of the actual carburation action is happening over here, and the intake is the top. Oh yeah, it mounts up to the intake like that, obviously. So this is an updraft carburetor, I would say, since it sucks the air through the intake, intakes here, and then it comes up into the engine right here. Fuel supply is right here on the bottom of the float bowl, and this is vacuum right over here. So lots of fun stuff to take apart, and we got to keep track of every little part. And it's funny, it looks like a pipe wrench has been used on some of this brass before, and you might just have to use a pipe wrench to take it all apart. So let's get some before pictures, since this thing has to go back together. So we'll start right here and try to just document every screw location so we don't miss anything while it's going back together. So another one here. Quite a few pictures when you're doing these things. And of course, positions of all of the cotter pins, springs, return spring. This is a, it appears to be an aftermarket return spring because there is a return system on the throttle as well. This stuff is so gunky, as you touch it, it sticks to your hands. So pretty nasty, I can tell you that. Old gas. It's just some really, really gross stuff. But now we've got that apart, let's pull these screws out of here. This is the easy side. And there's this little cap on here. And it's funny, it's literally just a cap. It's got a breather in it, but you can pop that open. And if you can hear that, you can actually move the float or the needle and seat up and down. Some of these screws are already wrong, guys. Look at that. The castings are all the same depth, but one screw is too short. So that's pretty funny. But coming out, we have our needle and seat, which is a very interesting design here. It's weighted. Very interesting. Then we have our float, and on the float, let's see, the weld that seals it goes on the bottom. We know that. And this is a big old float, and I have already tested the float as well. I did pull that off and put the float in some water to check it. Now, this is the needle right here, and the seat is buried on the bottom of this thing, and we do need to check that out. And definitely cool. This is a lake of gasoline. A literal lake of gasoline forms right here, and then dumps right down through this channel into the bottom of the actual carburetor right there. And that's where the magic happens. So I'm gonna get a giant crescent wrench, and we're gonna break this thing open, and once it's open, there's no going back, because obviously all the seals are gonna have to be replaced. So, another picture, just for posterity, and we'll go ahead and pull the return spring. Ooh, look at that. You know what? I think the return spring is gonna stay even in the bath. Works for me. I'm not upset about that one bit. Crazy linkages on this thing. All right, let's bust the bottom of this off. Let me get a giant crescent wrench. Not quite a giant crescent wrench, but a big one. Oh, that was easy. Just a nudge was all we needed. So this should just be a drain. Sure looks like a drain with, ooh, look at that. They used a copper crush washer on the bottom. Doesn't want to come off, but that's what's on there. So that can go right in the sauce. And inside there, we've got a square drive that needs removed. It's probably holding the entire thing together. And while we're here, let's go ahead and pull the giant one, the giant cap off the float bowl. So, make sure we're tight. Oh, easy, came right off. So this O-ring appears to be aftermarket and probably should have been a crush washer or a flat gasket. Who knows? That O-ring was absolutely crushed. Look at that filter. How cool. It's soldered on. So that's very cool. The O-ring is in terrible shape, I'll tell you that. It has splits all the way through it. Yeah. Don't know how that wasn't leaking. Lots of trash in here. You guys can see it coming out as I tear this thing apart. Let's go ahead and pop this compression fitting off. Kind of tight. Found a tight one, guys. We found a tight one. I want everything in here to be pretty, so I gotta do a good job, that's for sure. Well, we always do, but somehow turning into the carburetor shop over here. And everybody knows I hate carburetors, so it's kind of funny. All right, I need some needle nose. My hatred of carburetors knows no bounds, but that's what we do, apparently. We can sure clean them. All right, cotter pin out. Means we can probably pop the pin out of this linkage. Maybe not. I think that would have came right out, but it didn't. Very interesting. Also, this is the, yeah, this is definitely the choke. I don't know, I said it was throttle return, but I think the choke is integrated here because you can see the choke butterfly right there on the end. So, for some reason, pin doesn't want to come out. It's probably just stuck. We've got this one screw right here holding the column on. Let's see, it looks like there's room for a set screw or another screw on the other end, but there's nothing in it. All right, look at that spring assembly. That is wild. Double beehive springs, and they rotate as it lifts up. I don't want to tear this down if I can avoid it, actually. So we know that the polished silver screw does go in here. Let's see if we can avoid tearing down this stack, because everything in it appears to be metal. I don't see any rubber diaphragms or anything like that. And if we can leave it alone, we're leaving it alone. Takes a little while to get these out of here. If it was Phillips, we could definitely be using some power tools, but not gonna do that with these screws. So far the screws are the same. The gas that's coming out is red. Never a great sign. Bunch of trash in that screw. Dirt built up over years. We'll clean it up first. A little better. See if I can get a good bite this time. All right, got it. Didn't put a hole in the table. Impressive. Figured I was gonna hurt something that time. A lot of this is brass, incredible. This one has a washer, the others didn't, so you know it's been apart quite a few times. There we go. Casting released. All right, so what is this column here and linkage? Oh, it's got a cam, and the cam pushes up. This is literally like a valve you'd see in a cylinder head. It's got a lapped in seat. Crazy, what a huge valve. This must be an enricher or something like that. I'm not quite sure what they were doing with it, but. Ah, there we go. Okay, there's the linkage working, and you can push over it with the second spring. It can lock that closed. Huh. Maybe it's like a secondary. I'm winging it here. I don't know anything about the Packard Fuelalyzer. Okay, now there's two set screws here that are holding in the Venturi assembly. So let's pop those guys loose. They're very small and should be easy. Should be. Oh yeah, easy. Okay. This is all brass, I think. I thought it was a steel casting, but I think the entire thing is brass. This is wild to see. Wild. That's steel. But a scratch right there showed me the entire housing must be brass. Even the nut. Even the nut's brass. When do you ever see that? All right, just a bump on that one. Actually ended up taking the set screw out too. So we better remove that from the nut so that we can get a good clean on it. I'm gonna have to use a smaller screw. Nope. I don't think anything's actually holding it in now. If we can get a couple twists on the square, I think that'll wrap that up. Go ahead and do this. Nice and easy, can't beat that. This is the vacuum compression fitting. More brass, a lot of brass. A lot of brass. Tuesday, Tuesday, Tuesday. All right, so the trickiest part of this whole thing here is the chokes valve, the butterfly valve in here. And honestly, it looks like you can take it apart, but getting it back together, real pain. I'm not even sure how they did it. Honestly, impressive how they did this. But it doesn't need to come out. There's no real reason to tear this apart. There's nothing inside it. I'm gonna double check that since I said it. Let me shove some light down in there and make sure there's nothing behind it. But I don't think there is. Nah, get the main out and you're good to go. A lot of crud in here. This thing is full of crud. Black barnacles all over the place. Whew! All right, maybe we should even pop the seat out. I don't know if we can do that easily, but... Oh! Actually, a little bit of work to get that guy out and not damage anything, obviously. That's the main goal here. What do we have? Interesting. What a cool machined piece. It's got a slot filed out of it and just tons of debris down in the bottom. If we do a little bit of scratching in here, whoo! Here we go. You guys ready to see it? So much gunk. So much gunk coming out of here. All right, so the only thing left, it's completely apart. That's Pretty funny. It was that simple to tear it down. Obviously, we're gonna need a razor blade to clean up all the sealing surfaces here. This thing is ready to go be put in the carb cleaner. This looks like a diaphragm. I did not think it was a metal valve. So that's also pretty wild. Pretty wild. And there's nothing else in here, no seals, no nothing. Everything's metal on metal. Pretty cool. Well, I've decided not to remove the main jet. It's not gonna come out easily, and I don't wanna hurt this thing. Even with a square, it's just totally stuck in place. Now, I think it will come out if we put it in the carb cleaner and then wait and get everything around it dissolved. It works its way in there. I think it'll come out no problem at all. It shouldn't actually matter. Obviously, it's just got years of gunk on the threads, and it has top and bottom threads, and all of it was sitting in fuel, which has created a bit of a problem for getting it out, right? So I could fight it out, maybe throw some heat at it, but I think the easiest course of action here is plate it in brass or something like that. Machining looks really nice for 20s. Very, very nice. But some of the plating is flaking. Either way, it might just all be brass underneath because the threads look like brass all the way through. Anyway, we can get all the other threads loosened up by putting it in the carb cleaner and getting the entire carburetor cleaned up and ready for action. Now, I'm hoping this comes back with that nice, pretty brass finish after getting all the years of gunk off of here. More flaky brass. So we'll hit this bottom gasket and then let's head over and get this thing soaking in some carb clean. The illegal stuff. The illegal stuff's the good stuff. All right, time for some close-ups. Look inside there and you can see all the insane amounts of buildup. Inside there, you can see how bad it is, especially down around the sealing surfaces. Absolutely full of gunk over here, and the choke is very sticky and covered in varnish. The entire thing's covered in varnish, there's no doubt. But getting that main jet cleaned out, which you can see light through, but not well. Let's put some light in there and you can probably see right there. It looks like you might see a hint of light coming through there. So it's not completely clogged. It should have worked, but it doesn't work. So let's get it cleaned up. Just in case you guys have never seen this before, it's one of the coolest things ever. So the float sits right here like this, right? It has these two balls and the float presses up on it to close the seat at the bottom, and then when it's empty it lifts back up to let fuel in. So it's got this crazy mechanism, unlike really any lever float you've ever seen before. So pretty wild, and also there's a lot of wear on this. I think one of the best things I could probably do is tear this apart. I'll probably do this after. I might close up the pins, slide these out, and then flip over the balls so that it has a new wear surface. I think that it looks like they're perfectly symmetrical, so that would be a great way to fix this forever. Also, I don't know what this adjusts. I'm not really sure why there's a screw. It doesn't adjust. It just looks like it adjusts. But you can't move the collar on the rod, so it must not adjust. Anyway, it's just really, really cool to see. Well, here's the trickiest part of this entire job. The carburetor casting is so big that it looks like it's barely going to fit inside the our little strainer basket there. So that thing is gigantic, and then of course we have to get this guy in here because it's covered in varnish and junk. Obviously it brings air in, and that air is always dirty, and there's no air cleaner on this thing, which is interesting. So, you know, it's combining all that fuel with the air and making it a bigger, stickier mess. We also have to gently get this guy in there, so maybe something like that. That seems like it's pretty solid. The most fragile part of the entire carburetor is this fuel filter right here, so we'll sneak that in just like that so it doesn't get bumped around. And then everything else, all the small parts, we'll just dump them in. All right, we're ready to give it a bath. What's crazy is we still haven't even opened up that new solution that we picked up, like the last bucket you could have bought, because now this stuff is illegal to sell, so it's not like you can get it anymore at all. But this is still the old stuff from 20 years ago, still rocking and rolling. So we'll put this guy right on top so we know what's in there, and we'll get back to it tomorrow, 24 hours from now. Check it out, the forbidden book of knowledge for all my small engine fans. That's something you don't find anywhere. the Briggs & Stratton service manual. Well, it's been about 30 hours at this point, just a hair over the 24 we normally let these things soak. We have found that the older this solution gets, the longer we kind of want to leave things in there. So we're adding a few hours on almost every carburetor we do now. And of course, yesterday, after I put this all in the solution, I went over and started working on the big dump truck, and I severely injured myself. I'm losing this thumbnail right now. It keeps bleeding. It has not stopped. Every time it touches something, blood just pours out of it. That doesn't seem ideal. So this hand is pretty messed up at this point. It doesn't have any grip strength. But obviously we're going to keep moving on this carburetor because we got to get it out of here and we got to get it rinsed off. And then we'll be waiting for my dad to come reassemble it with us. Obviously, I planned on him tearing it down with us too, but he is currently in New York and won't be back until later in the week. So I guess for now, you guys get to see this old Packard carb come apart and get cleaned up, and I sure hope it's really shiny when we pull it out here in just a second. So let's see what we're working with here. Open up our solution, and here comes the... Whoa, look at that! Guys, this is gonna look incredible after we kind of just give it a quick brushing. So I'm gonna take it out right now. I gotta dump every single part to get all the liquid out of here. And then we'll do a little cleanup with some toothbrush and brush action, and I'll show you guys the results here in just a minute. Ooh, I thought this was gonna be pure brass. There's a lot of brass in there, that's for sure. But the casting looks incredible, like a nice silver. So I'm a little mind blown right there by how this came out. Look at this. That stuff was a different color altogether. Let's take a look at the needle and seat, or at least the needle. Interesting how that came out. It looks like there's still some gunk on there, and it also looks like the top piece could be copper, which is very interesting. It might have been plated copper or something like that. Kind of weird. And obviously lots of cleanup to do here still, but it is looking much, much, much better. Like brand new parts, just what we were going for. All that black gunk is out of this valve. So, very cool. I'm gonna keep cleaning. Well guys, here you go. The Fuelalyzer is completely cleaned. Everything's been hit with the jeweler's wire wheel there to make sure it's as clean as the day it was cast or milled. Obviously some of these still are gonna show some wear where they've knocked, it's all brass, but they knocked the plating off a few places with, like, I mean, this looks like a pipe wrench hit it, obviously. And so does the other one. They both have, they show a little bit of wear, but this is about as good as it will ever look. The only one that's weird is this was like plated copper, and the copper has really come through. Really, really. But it sure looks amazing. You gotta love that Packard carburetor. Float bowl hat there, and of course we'll probably flip over the weights to make sure there's no wear on those as well. Every single screw has been through the jeweler's wheel to make sure that it's as good as it's gonna look without replacing them straight up. They are brass, very cool. A nice gold finish there. And the valve looks perfect, ready to go back on. No gunk built up in it. And other than that, we are ready to assemble this, but we are gonna wait for my dad because I know everybody wants to watch him work on it too. So I need to finish getting that carb clean. I left a couple drops in there. But other than that, this thing is just ready for flat gaskets, and all of those are gonna have to be made. All the fuel and air passages look wonderful as well. So I think this thing's gonna run like a charm once we get it back together and on the Packard that you guys will see in a later video. So one more video about this carb with my dad so we can get it all put back together. Shouldn't take us long at all, just making a couple gaskets there, and then after that, we might even be able to see it go on the car and get running in my second video, which would be ideal. I'm sure he'd love to work on it too. So that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop.WatchJRGo.com for cool shirts, not like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time. Tough to make two videos out of this because the work's all done now, and cutting the gaskets will probably take him like 4 minutes. So we definitely need to put it back on the car and get it running in the second video too. And hopefully I can show you guys that. I can't wait to get over there if we can, but it sure is a pretty carburetor.